I share a birthday with James Baldwin. Yes, that James Baldwin, the legendary writer, who was born on August 2nd, 1924. I went through my entire life not realizing this fact until recently when I was browsing through a book about icons who have contributed to American culture. I like to think of it as a cosmic coincidence that I share a birthday with Mr. Baldwin, who would have turned 100 years old this year. As I record this video shortly after my birthday in 2024, I'd like to share some lessons I've learned about life over the past year. Number one, keep doing the right thing, even when no one else is. On Saturday, July 13th of this year, I attended the Columbus Book Festival. I was so overjoyed seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of people turn out to the main library in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, to see writers from all over the country read from their work and talk about their writing process. As a writer myself, as I left the festival, I was riding high. On the way home from the festival, I stopped at a store to get a snack. On the way into the store, I noticed a young guy who was coming out as I was coming in. So I stepped aside and held the door open for him as he exited. As he walked out of the store, the guy was texting on his phone and didn't even look up or acknowledge me in any way. It takes so little to acknowledge a random act of kindness like that. The guy didn't even have to look up at me. He could have just said, "Thanks, bro," or "Appreciate you," without even looking up and kept on walking. But he didn't even bother to do that. As I get older, I'm noticing that kind of self involved, self indulgent, and downright selfish behavior more and more. Whether it's people not saying please, thank you, or excuse me, people smoking while walking and blowing toxic fumes into the faces of unsuspecting non-smokers behind them. The list goes on and on. I get irritated and actually really sad witnessing these types of selfish behaviors. But one thing I've realized is, first of all, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I do insensitive things, and oftentimes I do those things without even realizing that I'm hurting someone's feelings. That certainly isn't my intention. And more importantly, I can't control other people. The only person whose actions that I have control over is my own. So I've committed to doing the following: continuing to hold the door open for people, continuing to call out passing on your left when I'm riding my bike on a trail so that walkers and runners who are walking beside me or running beside me won't be startled as I breeze by them. When I'm driving, continuing to use my turn signal to let other drivers know if I'm changing lanes or making a turn. And I'm also going to continue to wave thanks when people slow down to let me in. And I'm going to do these things without expecting others to reciprocate. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Number two, preconceived notions of success set you up for failure. I was born in the 70s and grew up in the 80s and 90s. I'm one of those people who does not like to tell my age, so I'll let you do the math. I've wanted to be a successful writer and filmmaker basically since I learned to write. In my 20s, when I was first starting out my journalism career, which I saw as a stepping stone to becoming a successful writer and filmmaker, I had a preconceived notion of success, being a world famous millionaire by the time you're 30. I didn't realize at the time that this superficial way of thinking was drilled into me by popular culture. Like a lot of Generation X kids, I was a latchkey kid whose babysitter was TV. I became just as brainwashed as anyone else, watching TV shows like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Dallas, and Falcon Crest, not to mention countless music videos on BET and MTV showing the people that I admired living large. I idolized people like Oprah Winfrey, Spike Lee, and Prince, who all contributed to my notion of what success meant. All of those wonderfully talented people were household names with millions of dollars in the bank at a relatively young age. By age 27, when I was still working at small newspapers in my hometown, and I hadn't yet found my quote unquote big break, I went through a severe depression. My mind played tricks on me, to paraphrase the Ghetto Boys. Negative self-talk told me that if I hadn't quote unquote made it by now, I probably never would. So why go on living? While that initial bout of depression thankfully lifted after a few months, it would unfortunately resurface at different times in my life. Even now, I struggle with comparing myself to people who have quote unquote made it big by my age. But I've also come to realize that, as cliche as it may be, you have to define success for yourself. As veteran journalist Susan L. Taylor, who was the editor in chief of Essence magazine for many years, once said, everyone is on a different path. So maybe I'm not at the level of someone like Tyler Perry, presiding over my own movie studio complex that is bigger than all the Hollywood studios put together and with a string of blockbusters under my belt. But I have something to contribute. Having grown up in an interracial family, I can tell stories that are uniquely diverse. I have a perspective that is one of a kind. The world needs my voice. Number 3, there's more than one road to success. Another thing that I believed when I was just starting out was that you had to live in New York or Los Angeles to be successful. My dreams of fame and fortune involved jet setting between a mansion in Los Angeles, a luxurious apartment in New York, and a deluxe flat in Paris. Sure, I'd keep a crash pad in my hometown in order to keep in touch with family and friends, but my dream did not involve living full time in the place where I grew up. But that's how things have panned out. As I've discovered over the years, there are plenty of successful people who have never completely abandoned their roots. Documentary filmmaker Michael Moore still lives in his native Michigan. Patti LaBelle never moved away from Philadelphia. And Prince built his famous recording studio and movie soundstage, Paisley Park, in his hometown of Minneapolis, a mid-sized Midwestern city that is very similar to my own. I found another road to success. This more realistic path involves traveling the world and making forays into entertainment hubs like New York and Los Angeles, while continuing to appreciate where I am and making the most of it. Number 4, focus on what you can control. A major reason that I suffered a severe depression at age 27 was because I was fixated on things that were out of my control. Money, fame, the respect of my peers, and adulation from the world at large. I'm learning to focus on things that I can control. And something that I can absolutely control is continuous improvement as an artist and building a quality body of work. Continuous improvement for me means constantly studying the disciplines of writing and filmmaking every day of the week. There are so many articles, tutorials, and courses that are available either for free or at a nominal cost. I'm currently reading filmmaker Steve Stockman's excellent book, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck, and taking the online course that goes along with the book. I highly recommend both. I believe that the concept that you can master a craft after 10,000 hours of practice is mostly true, but with a major caveat. You have to engage in deliberate practice. I first heard the term deliberate practice from author and motivational speaker James Clear. I'm currently reading his book Atomic Habits, which gives very clear, no pun intended, guidelines on how to break bad habits and build good ones. Deliberate practice means rather than just blindly practicing something over and over, like playing a musical instrument or writing, you actively identify your weaknesses and work on improving in those areas. So I'm deliberately practicing writing and filmmaking, identifying where I can improve, and constantly working to get better in those areas. I'm slowly but surely building a body of work, learning as I go. Number 5, my younger self has advice for me now. It's become a cliche to ask, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self? There are many things I'd tell my younger self, which I've detailed in the points that I just made. But I've also come to realize that my younger self has plenty of advice to give to the current version of myself. And the main piece of advice that my younger self has to impart to me now is to hold on to my dreams, no matter how hard it gets. It may sound trite, but holding on to your dreams is one of the biggest struggles in life. It is so easy to get frustrated and give up when you hear more no's than yeses, when you get doors slammed in your face, when things don't work out as planned. But I strive to keep that sense of wonder about the world. that I had as a child, the belief that magic can happen. To quote my favorite movie of all time, The Wizard of Oz, the dreams that we dare to dream really can come true. If you like this video, please leave a comment, share it, and subscribe to my channel.